Hey, welcome to another episode of the Clicks to Customers podcast. I am John Horn, your host and the CEO of StubGroup. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Duane Brown, the founder of Take Some Risk. You can find them at takesomerisk.com. And Duane, thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great day to be on a podcast.
Absolutely. And I was telling Duane before we started recording here that we are having torrential rain right now where I am at outside of San Antonio, Texas. So if you hear some thunderclaps in the distance, that is going to be what's going on. But here, let's dig in. Let's start out by telling me a little bit more about who Take Some Risk is, this company that you founded, and what is it that you guys spend your time doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're an agency now, but I always kind of tell people I didn't mean to start an agency. I mostly quit my job back in the day because I was bored and figured I'd just freelance for a year, and then one turned to two, turned into three, and then the pandemic hit, and wow, here we are now. Back then we probably focused on no focus in the sense that we kind of took anyone as a client because, you got bills to pay. These days, 99% of our business is sort of e-commerce, direct consumer, retail type brands. In all but one case, they all want help sort of selling online, whether it's, B2B e-com and you're selling, dental equipment, construction equipment, turbochargers, things for trucks, or, it's B2C and you're selling like, fashion, clothing, vandals, mountain bikes, cell phone cases, stuff we, see online or see in stores. And so in all those cases, clients want help sort of driving more, quality traffic to the website that's going to buy whatever they're selling, and then obviously, potentially grow the business or, make the business more profitable.
Maybe where I'll start is a hot topic right now for a lot of people, which is the current tariff situation. Mm-hmm. I was just having a conversation earlier today with our team about a client who's, trying to figure out, hey, how do we message? What do we do about the situation where our prices are increasing, et cetera? And it's something that a lot of e-commerce businesses in particular are having to think through right now. So on your end, I'd love to hear kind of what's your point of view? How are you thinking about it? How are you seeing clients react to it? And just how is it impacting business in your world?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing because about, half our clients are in America. Their half is split between, Canada, sort of across the UK and Europe. And so obviously all those different regions can be impacted differently. Some make stuff in America, some make stuff just in Canada. Some stuff might get made, in Asia or in Europe or what have you. So they're all going to obviously have different potential tariffs amounts. And I think with every client, if this was a month ago, it's kind of a wait and see. These days, I think some clients have tried a mix of, we're going to either eat the sort of tariff fee that they have to pay, as a customer. Some have decided to eat it a little bit, but raise the prices slightly. So maybe it's, 50% eat it and then 50% raise prices, sort of help things a little bit. And then some clients are still taking a wait and see. I think the last 60 whatever days since the new president has been in office has been a lot of like, we're going to do X and then we pause or wait and see. And I think clients are just taking the wait and to see what happens over the next sort of 90-ish days while the current pause is in place, or I guess 60 days now because it was early April. And so we're just, having an ongoing conversation with clients to figure out how it impacts them or doesn't impact them. We have some Canadian clients who make everything in Canada. They only really sell in Canada for most part, so they're not really impacted. For all the other clients who either sell in America, sell to America, ship to America, it's just an ongoing conversation to figure out, what makes sense. And in some cases, clients even said, okay, well, if our goal was, an ACOS of 4 or ROAS of 4, maybe we'll want to go to an ACOS of 3 or a ROAS of 5. And so changing or tweaking our KPI targets is the other option. So it's either, raise prices, eat margin, or, raise or tweak your target with your agency or your in-house team if you're all in-house to help mitigate this. Because obviously, for the most part, most people are starting to pay these tariff taxes now. And, there's no one else to give it to but your customers. So either your customers pay it or you pay, but someone's going to have to pay it. And so it's definitely, challenging because you've got to sort of rethink your whole sort of business model. And obviously businesses that don't have a great margin are going to be hit harder potentially. The businesses that have a higher margin, as a whole.
And gotta pay the piper, and the money's got to come from come from somewhere. I should contextualize too for those watching and listening to this that we're recording this in early May. I say that because with the speed at which things are changing, by the time you're watching this, may have some new information, but it also seems to be there's certainly a new paradigm that e-commerce businesses are facing. The exact details of which are uncertain, but things have definitely changed. I am curious, especially with those clients you mentioned who are, at least to some extent, raising prices to offset the increased costs. Do you see many of them messaging about that to customers, whether it be on product pages or email or anything? Are they saying, hey, here's what we're doing because of the tariffs? Or is it more just of, prices are being increased, but they're not specifically saying why?
To be honest, we haven't asked any clients if they're going to message people about it. I mean, only a few have raised prices. At least going to the website, I haven't seen any message on it. So, maybe there's an email that got out and we just don't get access to that email. But, it's not a bad idea to message people about it. But also, some brands may not want to do it because it's not a great email to get as, oh yeah, this product is now 10%, 20%, 30% more expensive than it was, 2 weeks ago and stuff like that. Because that's also the hard thing is like, as Amazon was going to sort of have a line on their invoice about, not invoice, but their pricing about like why prices are higher. And then the administration called and talked with Bezos and there was a little confab there and now they're not going to do that. And so, maybe some businesses don't want to antagonize people potentially by calling it out, even though it seems not everyone understands like what a tariff is. A tariff is basically a tax, right? If you don't like taxes, you shouldn't like tariffs. That's what it boils down to really.
Yeah, it's definitely putting businesses in this tricky situation where you don't necessarily want to take a political stance one way or the other saying this is good or bad, but you do need to explain potentially why things are more expensive for consumers. So fun tightrope to walk there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's kind of move on from the tariff conversation a bit here and go a little bit maybe bigger picture on the e-commerce side of things. So you and I were chatting a little bit before we started recording here about the idea of profitability and about how a lot of agencies often focus more on very specific metrics that maybe they're calculating in a Google Ads account or a Meta Ads account or somewhere, and it's easy to lose sight of the overall profitability for a client, how the business is doing as a company and so forth. So I'd love to hear kind of what's your point of view on how you and your company talk through big picture goals, talk through assessing profitability and how the marketing that you're managing for your clients kind of works into that big picture narrative.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're a small company in the sense that you don't have a lot of SKUs. Clients have hundreds to thousands to, in a lot of cases, tens of thousands of SKUs. And obviously, unless a client has a limited budget, and even then, you're probably not going to advertise all those SKUs. So one of the big conversations is like figuring out how does a client actually make money? And that seems like a basic question and a duh question, but, give an example, fashion client, they sell hoodies and sweats and pants and shorts and, socks and everything else in between that you could see at any sort of fashion store. And I could probably go tomorrow, turn on a campaign to sell socks and probably sell a boatload of socks online. The reality is, if you're anyone in Ecom, you probably don't make very much money off socks. Yes, I could sell a lot of socks on Google or Meta. The ROAS would probably look great or the ACOS would look really great. But when it came down to the client actually making any money, it's like, well, we didn't really make any money because we sell socks at cost, or the margins on those are really great. So it's understanding like how the client actually makes money, like which products are the best from a profitability standpoint, that we can put money behind it and then move that online. Now, obviously, we tell clients just because you want to sell a product doesn't mean you're going to be able to sell that product. A client may like a gray hoodie or a gray pair of sweats for whatever reason, and they want us to push it, and we try to push it, and it doesn't sell, and that's fine. But our goal is to figure out like how does the client actually make money, like what SKUs make sense, what SKUs don't make sense, and then what SKUs do they not want us to sell. So the example, the sock one's a real thing, like client doesn't want us to focus on socks. We've got a few sports clients, so we don't sell things like, tennis balls or low margin products. So once we do so that stuff we don't sell, we really just focus on, where we can make profitable stuff happen, and then focus on those things that we can sell within sort of those hundreds of thousands of SKUs. And then obviously, as a brand either grows or changes, expands, new SKUs get added, new SKUs get taken away from the site, we'll always just adjust what we're going to promote, whether it's on Google on Microsoft or on Meta or on TikTok and stuff like that. So our focus is on making sure we don't just have great looking numbers inside the ad account. That's actually a product that can actually make the client money, and theoretically a product we can sell lots of over the coming weeks and months. And then from there, it's just figuring out, where do we want money? Clients, again, may want to sell us the gray version of a top, but we can't sell it because people don't actually love the gray version. Maybe the client loves it, but everybody wants to buy the red version and like the white version. So let's just push the red version, the white version more, and balance those things. And that's always an ongoing conversation with clients. So I'm like, well, I've got lots of this whatever product and I'm not moving it. I'm like, well, we can try to push it. And then for most like e-commerce brands, if you got like a sales section or a last call section, that stuff usually moves pretty quickly on Google and on Microsoft, mostly because it's discounted, it's cheaper than probably the competition, all things being equal, unless it's like a sort of a product that has a map price potentially. And then most clients have some sort of sale type campaign with very small budget to move things that are on sale that you can push. So really what separates us is trying to understand the client's business a lot better and where they actually make money and how they can make money. And then how do we just push that with their budget? Because the budget might be $5,000 a month. The budget might be $50,000 a month. So regardless of whether it's $5,000 or $50,000 a month, it's making sure that each dollar gets used in the best way possible. And we're not just trying to have like great numbers in the ad account, because you have great numbers in the ad account, but the business could lose tons of money because you sold the wrong product. Even if your ROAS was like a 4 or a 5 or a 6 in Google or Microsoft or in Meta.
No, I think that's a super important point. I've seen this many times with our own clients where they'll have some certain ROAS number they have in mind. You have to achieve 4x or 5x or whatever that number is. But then we try to have this conversation with them, which is, well, you don't have the same margins for each of your products. So a 4x ROAS for this product may be awesome. 4x ROAS for this product, you might be losing money every single time you sell that product. And so we have to have, like you said, more strategic goals, understanding the product mix, segmenting things correctly. And also thinking through things like loss leaders, like average order value. Are there products that get people into your ecosystem, and then you can increase your lifetime value because they're going to purchase more other products from you? And I think that conversation is really vital to have. Because you work across a variety of advertising marketing platforms, I'm very interested to know, from a software perspective, when you're looking at things like attribution to see, okay, what impact did Meta have versus Google, et cetera, onto the customer journey? Are there any particular software solutions that you like and that you use, or how do you think through that that attribution question, the $1 million question?
Yeah, I mean, we always tell clients, you're never going to solve it. It's like the thing everyone wants to solve, and it's impossible. And so we look at like a combination of things. There's obviously in-platform numbers on the platform. So look at, all our clients have a really nice setup GA4, Google Analytics 4. So we'll get stuff in there as well, especially when it comes to paid social stuff. If we're saying that Meta or TikTok is saying that there are sales, we want to see some attributed sales in GA4. If we just see no attributed sales in GA4, then I always start to question how much, conversions or revenue, Meta or TikTok is driving. And then, maybe 75% of our clients are on Shopify. So we have access to every client's backend. So we're trying to sort of see, how sales are going day to day, week to week, month to month and stuff like that. So for increasing budgets 1 month, in theory, we should see more revenue, all things being equal for that client in Shopify. And so those are kind of the sort of three places we look between in-platform, GA4, and then, if we have access to client's backend, the backend, we have one client who's got a custom website. And so for them, we just have a spreadsheet they shared with us. And so we just pull like revenue number from the backend, they update the spreadsheet, we kind of get an idea of, how things are trending for the month in terms of what we're selling. Because they're selling, basically across 15, 16 countries across Europe, and it's electronics. So understanding sort of like what countries are actually selling, what countries are bringing in revenue, do we have money in the right spot? Is revenue in the back end what it should be? Is it, 600,000 this month, 700,000 this month? Especially for them, because they work towards an ACoS number. We want to make sure that if we're spending more money in a country, we're seeing the sales in that country and the revenues being attributed correctly on the back end, so they can make more money and hopefully, spend more money in the future.
I'd love to dig in a little bit further on the social side of things. So with Facebook shops, TikTok shop, the social commerce aspect, have you had many of your clients get into that side of things? And if so, I'm curious to hear what success you've seen with actually pushing people to purchase through the platforms themselves, as opposed to even going to Shopify and ordering through the client's website.
Yeah, I mean, a few clients have shops and they get some sales from there, but I wouldn't say it's outstandingly amazing. I think when it comes to social shopping, challenge, really comes down to nobody wants to manage it, for lack of a better word. It's like some people who don't want to work on creative for Meta or TikTok. It's like, yeah, I'd love to be on there, but I don't have the time or the resources or the energy to sit and make creative every week or hire a designer to make creative every week. And so I think it's one of the things that it can work, and it's, a client by client basis. Most clients really heavily focus more on their website, and if they've got a retail store, the retail store, then, trying to get in another position where, shops, whether it's TikTok or Meta, becomes basically in some ways, another Amazon where you're just paying someone lots of fees to drive sales, and they try to hook you in and then you can't leave. I think the big trend we've seen is a lot of brands want to leave Amazon in the last year. They're like, well, we're paying 30, 33, 35% to Amazon when fees are done, because there's, all those different fees and we don't really make any money. So how do we just drive more people to our, Shopify site, whatever it is, and try to get off Amazon? So I think a lot of brands are rethinking shops in theory makes sense, but if we're going to start paying fees to, Meta or TikTok, or there's some sort of cut they're going to take, does this make sense long term? Because I think the challenge is sometimes people say, oh, this is great, we're making lots of money, but I'm like, what does this things look like in a year from now, 2 years, 3 years? Do you want to really be here paying these fees that they're going to raise the fees?
Right.
Let's not be stupid here. Amazon did it. It's a playbook. Get you in cheap and then raise the fees when you're locked in. Yeah. And so trying to get clients to think a little bit more long-term, not fees so short-term minded potentially with something that looks great, but long-term you're not gonna enjoy it.
No, I think that's a really important point. You got to build that stability into your brand as well, and yeah, maybe it is, maybe it isn't worth kind of making hay while the sun shines, so to speak, and taking advantage of lower fees as these platforms kind of get you into their ecosystem to begin with. But then where are things going to go long term? And that's a great segue too. When we're talking about sending traffic to the two websites, you and your background back in the day used to work for Unbounce, which, if for those who aren't familiar with Unbounce, it's one of the leading softwares for creating and testing landing pages. And so I'm sure you have lots of thoughts, lots of experience when it comes to that conversion experience and website experience. So I'd love to kind of pick your brain. What are some of the things that you see working well right now in terms of approaches to website experience, and what are maybe some of the common mistakes that e-commerce D2C brands should be avoiding in how they create product pages, experiences, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I actually gave a talk about this last month in the UK, and it's sort of my thing I try to talk about a lot this year and of last year is basically, I think because we've all obviously been through a pandemic, and there may be a recession, may not be a recession. There was stagflation a few years ago and stuff. I think we kind of forget that, 10 years ago, you'd get lots of traffic from a mobile device, but people wouldn't convert. Whereas today, people get, 50, 60, 70, sometimes 80% of their traffic from mobile, but they also get 50, 60, 70, 80% of their revenue conversions from mobile. And so we don't see as many people maybe focusing on the mobile experience as much as they should. To quote one client a little bit is thanks for convincing me to redo my checkout because I haven't touched this in 7 years. And that's one of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 of our clients that have a custom website. So I think it's getting people to relook at things that maybe haven't looked at in the last couple of years. And so mobile has to be one of those big ones. People are not only just going on a mobile device and researching, they're actually purchasing these days, especially if you're on a great platform like whether it's Shopify, big commerce, where it's sort of a standard layout. Even if you have a custom site and you've got a really great mobile experience, odds are your mobile conversion rate is 50%, 100% lower than what it is on desktop for lots of brands. And if you can, close that gap, and yes, obviously there's the work involved to close that gap, but if you can do it, you're not going to have to be like SEO or paid ads where you've got to spend money on it every month. Once you've done it, you fixed it, and then you just got to obviously monitor it to make sure it doesn't break and stuff like that. So I think investing in that experience around mobile is really, really important. And also having people on your team go to the website on a mobile device and not just like an iPhone, but like Android or Samsung, so they're not iPhone devices, I think is really important. And then beyond mobile, I think it's just thinking about how do you make it easier for someone to shop and sort of collapse distance being a come to your product page and want to go to your checkout. I think especially when you're not on like a Shopify or something like that, and you've got like a WooCommerce site or sort of some custom website, you almost have sometimes too many clicks. There's too many things I got to do to get to the checkout. And so trying to collapse that distance, I think, is really helpful. But people often don't think about it because they think their website's great, but it's kind of like a person who's got an ugly baby. No one ever thinks their ugly baby is ugly. But sometimes you got to tell a client, well, this experience could be better, and here's how it could be better and stuff like that. For a client we talked about before who redid the checkout, I basically said, nobody I know goes to a website for the first time, makes a purchase, and registers and makes an account. Like, you just don't do it. Maybe on your second purchase or your third purchase, we should just try to duplicate Shopify. Shopify has, I don't know, $500 million, $1 billion, whatever it is a day, go through their checkout. Like, they've rock tested this checkout. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's just copy something we know is successful, use that as a baseline, and then iterate off that to sort of get to where you want for our own website and stuff like that. So I think in some ways it's copying what we know is successful, all things being equal, fixing your mobile experience, and from there figuring out how do you just remove any sort of friction there is, make things like stupid. Like if you've got a mom or a dad still, ask them to go to your website. Because my mom is the most average person there is. No offense to my mom, but she's just a person to see on the street. And so if she's going to struggle, other people are going to struggle, because she doesn't spend all day like you or I on the internet just like doing our jobs.
That's such a great point. Yeah, because even when I'm looking at a website, I understand kind of the back end side of things. So I can understand, how to get to where I'm going in a way that someone who's not spending all their time on the internet all day, every day, doing this stuff is not necessarily going to look at things in that way. And so, yeah, it's an awesome point. Get people who are not even in the marketing world, even in the e-commerce world, and just see how that average consumer navigates the website. And yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I was having recently with a client about their mobile checkout process as well, where like we're looking at their computer, their process on desktop on computers, and they have this great kind of cross-sell, upsell type feature of, hey, add additional products to your cart so you can get above the minimum threshold for free shipping, that type of thing. It was great. And then we're going to their website on mobile, and we're like, this isn't here. Like, it's not showing up. Or sometimes it would show up at the very bottom of the screen, and people aren't even getting down to there. And so it's this type of thing where you just gotta go there. You gotta go through it and look and be like, what's missing, what's different, and simple things like that can have a massive impact on conversion rate when you make changes. I'm very curious. This is a rabbit trail, but I want to go down it. Your business name, your domain name. Take some risk. TakeSomeRisk.com.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Why did you want to choose that as your business name?
Yeah, I want to get a .com, so I was like, I went through a lot of different ideas for names, which I didn't even do what their names were at this point. Ideally, wanted something that was kind of short, and then lastly, I thought I should get something that sort of maybe says who I am as a person or sort of relates to me and stuff like that. I kind of realized, even grammatically correct, you'd say take a risk. I realized that, for most people to get to where they are, they've probably taken multiple risks. Some risks are big, some risks are small, some risks are medium, whatever. And so I said, take some risks. Made sense because I've taken some sorts of different risks to get here. I moved to Australia many years ago without knowing anyone to go work because getting a job in Canada is really hard when you're done college, university. And that was great for 6.5 months. I worked for a telecom. Then I came back and we're still kind of post-financial crisis and things were a little bit better in Canada, but still getting a job wasn't easy. Then I moved to the UK for a couple of years, which was really great. And so I realized I've always done sort of risky things that some people might say are risky or crazy, whatever. I think is I had to do what I had to do to figure it out because I don't have really a safety net to fall back on. I'm not for lack of a better word, I'm not a trust fund baby. And so I just thought Take Some Risk was a great name for like how I've gotten to where I am at that point. Quitting a job without a job, just because you're unhappy, even though you're paid really well, is probably a stupid thing some people would say, but bored and, making another company lots of money is great in theory, but if your salary is not going to increase to the point that you too can make that much money, then why work hard for the salary when you're just bored out of your mind? And I don't have to love every day of my job, because I definitely don't love every day of my job, but I do want to be happy or happier. So Take Some Risk just made sense because I sort of really looked at my history of taking lots of risks to get here. And then on the flip side, I thought about if we're on an airplane right? You know, and we're going to jump out of the airplane, skydive. I want a client to like grab my hand and jump out of the plane, even if they have a fear of heights, and take that risk, because, you know, to get to where clients want to go sometimes, you know, they got to take a risk to get there. They can't do what they've always done, because if you're doing what you've always done, you're probably not going to move where you want to go, because what you've always done is kind of what got you to our door and the 4 other agencies you're talking to hire. And so if you want to get somewhere, you probably have to change and tweak something, change your website, change your strategy in Google Ads or in Meta or in Microsoft or in TikTok, or you're going to have to like kill some products that you love but don't actually make you any money, or you're going to have to, you know, redo your website, get off, you know, your WooCommerce custom website into Shopify or something else. And so it's really about like what it's taken me to get here, but what I want clients to do is to take, you know, risks. And not all risks have to be huge things. They can be small risks sometimes, but take some sort of risk of some kind and make some sort of change versus the like, I don't want to change anything and I don't want anything to change, but I want you to fix a problem. Well, I'm not a magician, right? I'm not Merlin. I can't make your dreams come true if you're not willing to change anything. And so, yeah, it worked as a domain name. It was available. I bought it, you know, and I've never looked back.
I love it. It's a great origin story, and like you said, a great reality too of how the marketing world works. There are no guarantees in marketing. If there were, be a very different world that we'd be in. But it's all about risking and seeing if you can get that competitive edge. See if you're figuring out a better strategy than other people, and ultimately making those numbers work. So, Duane, really enjoyed the conversation. A lot of great insights and thoughts. I love picking the brain of other leaders in this space that we both live in, and seeing how different people think about working with marketing, working with clients, and dealing with the never-ending things that are coming our way, things like tariffs and so forth. So thanks for coming on the pod. What is the best way for people who are watching and listening to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably just our website, just takesource.com. I mean, I am in LinkedIn, so just Duane Brown on LinkedIn if you want to reach out that way. For whatever reason, those are usually probably the 2 ways people get in touch with me. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Reddit, but, you know, unless you know who I am on Reddit and spend time on Reddit, you probably don't know who I am. So I'd say probably our website or LinkedIn is probably the best way most people reach out, who've come from podcasts or just maybe speak at a conference and stuff like that. And, you know, our goal is always to help brands who want to either, you know, be more profitable and or be profitable and scale their ad spend so they can just take away market share. 'Cause the best time to win market share is usually in a recession. Even though we're technically not in a recession yet, if you go into one, you got to still invest in marketing if you want to be here on the other side.
100%. Well, to those watching and listening, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining another episode of the Clicks to Customers pod, and we will see you on the next episode.